everyone. Thank you for joining us once again. It's me, Dr. Orlando Walters, Doctor in Physical Therapy, and I'm here with Nzingah.
Hi.
And she is a yoga instructor extraordinaire. Okay? Well, thank you for joining me and allowing me to speak with you today.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. It's definitely my pleasure. And, well, basically, I just want to kind of discuss what it is that you do and your approach to it. From what I understand, and keep in mind I'm here to be educated, you know, yoga is of the Eastern ideology towards health and healing.
Correct.
And they're more into more preventative versus more trying to fix you.
Yes, but sometimes we can help with injuries and things like that.
Okay, well, first of all, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, my name is Nzingah. Asian American, holistic health consultant, yoga instructor, multidisciplinary artist, and chef.
Chef. Can I say something?
Yeah.
All right, so I just want to let you guys know, all right? How I know Nzingah, all right? She set me off on a helpful journey. I don't know how else you want to say that, but she really helped me towards moving toward the path of just really taking care of myself, you know, from intake and consumption standpoint. And awesome, and she got some really good recipes and stuff like that. She's also got a book out. What's the name of that book?
Yes, baby, I like it raw.
Yes.
Guys, see a healthy lifestyle.
Yes. And the stuff is good. The stuff is great. You gotta check it out. We'll get into that later, okay? All right. So yeah, tell me a little bit about in terms of being an instructor and so on. Well, what got you into that in the first place?
So I came into yoga as a supplement to me trying to heal myself.
Okay.
When I was in my early teens, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor, autoimmune disorder, as well as polycystic ovary syndrome. And so as a consequence, I was placed on a lot of medications and things of that nature. So when I was in college, I was kind of sick and tired. I always say the sick and tired being sick and tired. Knew which arm was my good arm when you want to get blood. Was on a list of medications. Was essentially told that in order for me to live, I needed to be on medication for the rest of my life. So I guess I would say my sophomore year in college, I decided I wanted to seek an alternative to what I was being told. It didn't always resonate with me. It just felt like there could have been a different way. So I started doing research and I decided to do a lifestyle overhaul. So that looked like becoming plant-based, vegan. That looked like taking away products that were toxic. So using certain types of soaps and lotions on my skin. And it also looked like going to yoga. I would say now in hindsight, a lot of my illnesses came out of trauma that I was dealing in my childhood, and that's how my body dealt with it. And the yoga helped me move that trauma out of my body. And I was also using the yoga to help me with detoxifying, because I went into Bikram, and Bikram is a hot yoga. So I was just thinking about, I just need to sweat these toxins out of my body. But now, here I am, 18 years later, I'm understanding yoga in a much deeper and more profound level. And so what I also realized is as I was detoxifying my body through the sweat, I was also detoxifying my body of the trauma that I had embodied. And I was finding a new relationship with my body, because some of the trauma I experienced was physical trauma.
So the fact that you were going through issues where wellness was involved, you'd say almost psychosomatic in a way, like it was manifesting itself physically.
Correct. And the first time I got a hint of that is when I went to see a Chinese medicine doctor. And I told him about the autoimmune disorder I have. I have an autoimmune disorder called scleroderma, and that attacks your connective tissue. And when I told him I had scleroderma, his initial statement, oh, that's a disease of fear. And when he said it, I was defensive, and I was just like, what is he talking about? What's the disease of fear? But when I allowed myself to really sit with the time period when it started to present itself, I was in perpetual fear. So it would only make sense then that I would have a disease like scleroderma. So in yoga, we have a sister science, which is Ayurveda. It's Ayurvedic medicine. It's very similar to Chinese medicine, but more indigenous to India. They say that we have amas, undigested material that gets stuck in our bodies. Sometimes that can look like toxins from foods, from our environment, but sometimes that undigested material can look like emotions that we didn't digest, and then that creates blockages in our body. So we always think about the body not as just a physical body, but we have these energetic bodies as well. So when we are in disalignment, when we're not in alignment in one realm, it then shows up in another realm. So for every physical disease, there's probably a mental or spiritual component to it as well. So yeah, it gets really deep and profound. So in Ayurveda, what they will sometimes prescribe is yoga as a way to help move those amas out of the body. So oftentimes people, when they're practicing yoga, they might hit a block and feel this overwhelming feeling to cry because they're releasing something that, like, it might have been like when I was 10 years old, my dog got hit by a car, you know, and I never really got over it. And you are now holding it in, this is persistent pain that you may have in your body that has nothing to do with any actual physical trauma, but it was actually an emotional trauma.
So, I mean, what it really sounds like, and this is also part of my philosophy in terms of healing and recovery, it has to be a multi-pronged approach.
Correct.
There's the physical aspect, there is the emotional aspect, and then there's also what you're consuming.
Sure.
So it sounds, you got really deep on that, you know. And what I've also come to realize is that in different forms of medicine and different forms of healing, there's still that very basic framework of how to get an individual to obtain homeostasis or to be
correct,
to be good. And I always look for that. I always try to see if my theory in that regards is off, and it always comes around to being that. So frequently, I hear individuals where they've had issues where stress. I'll just call it stress.
That's a great word. I like to use that as a general term.
Stress creates so much dis-ease in the body, you know. So one thing I definitely try to promote to individuals is trying to take care of that mental aspect, whether it is spiritually, whatever your religion might be.
Sure.
Could also be family, or just having individuals with positive energy around you to kind of either hold you or uplift you to bring you to that level of homeostasis, you know. So I guess sometimes what you put in, and from a spiritual standpoint, getting rid of some negative energy will have a massive effect.
It does. It does.
So, all right, so for a layman such as myself, who has never done yoga and knows very little bit, I tried it when I was in school, and I realized I was almost like as stiff as a board, you know. And you know, for me, I like to be, a busybody. So it seemed very calming, and then, but that was at a younger age. I think I'm far more open to it now.
Yeah, we need to get you in a class.
Well, I'm open to it. I definitely want to learn. So here's my question: for an individual such as myself, who I say basically I haven't really done it, like really, right? What is the approach, or what is the thought process? What should I expect from it?
So I first want to say that the way we practice yoga in the West is very much influenced by how we do things here. So in some ways, yoga has become a feel to burn kind of place instead of finding my peace. So sometimes when people go to a yoga class, they're expecting the peace, and they feel more burned. Sometimes you can get two. Yoga, the word itself means union or yoke. And so the physical practice of yoga is hatha, Hatha. And that Sanskrit word, if we break it down, ha means sun, the means moon, ha means strength, the means flexibility, ha, masculine energy, the feminine energy. So when we say hatha yoga, that's the physical practice of yoga, what we're actually saying is the union of the mind and body, the union or pairing of our strength and flexibility. So our physical practice of yoga was created so that we could strengthen body to actually sit in meditation for long periods of time.
Oh.
So that is where, when we look at Patanjali Yoga Sutras, they say the yoga pose is a seated pose. So if you're coming to a yoga class, I would say that you should expect to move your body and that movement should be connected to your breath. Okay? However, depending on what kind of class you go into will dictate how you will move. So in a vinyasa flow class, you move and transition from one pose, or what we call asana, to the next. So I inhale and I'm in one pose, then I exhale and I'm in another pose. Inhale, exhale. Okay? And some of those moves can be more rapid, but generally, the general sense is as you're inhaling, you're transitioning into one. As you're exhaling, you're going into another. In a hot yoga class, there's different types. One that is very popular is a Bikram class. That class is about 90 minutes, and you don't transition. You hold poses for a period of time, and then you let them go. You start off in a standing position, and then you end on the floor. Then we have like our yin and restorative classes. Those classes are typically on the ground. You're using lots of props, bolsters and blocks, and maybe even straps. With yin, you may feel some sensation in terms of like, oh gosh, this is a really deep stretch. Whereas a restorative yoga practice, we don't want you to feel any real sensation in terms of like, oh my gosh, I need to get out of this. It's really geared towards being relaxed and restored and renewed. So every class is very different. That's just me giving you a sample of it. So for instance, if you go into like, I'm an Ashtanga practitioner, and Ashtanga, we're moving and flowing. We're moving and flowing with our breath. That primary series is one of the series that we do. It's about 90 minutes, and we do maybe close to 60 yoga push-ups by the end of that series. However, we build up. So that is also a difference in that practice versus other practices. In other practices, the class is designed to be led for an entire group. So it doesn't always meet your personal needs. Whereas in the Ashtanga yoga practice, you're in a classroom, but the Mayaswara style is, it's almost like you're getting a private with a bunch of people in the room. So the teacher gives you some things to do, you memorize it, they give you assists based on your body, and you move from there. And that's why I transitioned into that practice, if I'm quite honest, because I noticed some gaps in my practice by just solely going to a group-led yoga class.
Now, here's my question. How often should one perform the act?
I would say if you could get 3 to 4 times a day, that would be really great.
A day?
Not a day, a week.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
No, don't do the 3-4 times a day. So 3 to 4 times a week, especially if you're dealing with a lot of stress. Yoga is a great way to help relieve stress. It's a great way to lower your blood pressure. My blood pressure is always like below the 120/80. I think the last time I got my numbers was like 108/69.
Oh, wow. So you're smooth sailing all the time. There you go.
Yeah.
Right, nice, okay.
Yeah,
No blood pressure medication for you, right?
Yep. And I have a family history of high blood pressure, hypertension. So it's also a great way of self-care. Like, you can strengthen the body. It is a great place to gain strength. Oftentimes when people think of yoga, they only think of it as a place for flexibility, but the practice is, again, a balance of both. So for women, when we come into the practice, we're naturally more flexible, so we're learning to pair our flexibility to be at par our strength to be our par with our flexibility. Whereas with men, they tend to be more strong than flexible. So then we're bringing that flexibility up so it can be more par and match the strength.
So you help individuals obtain balance.
Yeah, that's the goal.
I love that.
That's the goal.
Okay.
That's the goal.
So
And all of that's connected to the breath.
Okay.
And the breath becomes really key to everything.
All right. So my question is, if an individual is not able to get to yoga class 3 to 5 times during the week, so busy and so on and so forth, how would they be able to still implement some of that in their regular day, maybe in between a heavy, busy work schedule and so on?
So one of the basic ways that I tell people to come into yoga is just to practice sun salutations. And sun salutations are a great way. They're the foundation of a lot of like the vinyasa practice, that's the moving flow. And it has a series of movements that you can do, and you can just do a few a day and just build up with time. And you can practice at home. You don't need a class. Once you know it, you won't even need a video, to be quite honest. And it has a series of movements that you do. There's several sun salutations. The ones that are pretty well known are sun salutation A, sun salutation B, and the classical sun salutation. So that's a great way to do it. And remember, sitting still is a form of yoga. So sometimes because in the West we're like, go.
That's me.
We feel like, okay, I come here and I need to move, but just sitting in silence can be your yoga practice. Because yoga is not just the physical practice. Like there's a mental work that happens. So sitting in meditation is a practice of yoga.
So people like me probably have like ADD and stuff like that, can't keep still. How?
Great. So there's different, great segue. There's different types of meditation. Oftentimes we think that meditation is legs crossed, fingers in a mudra, eyes closed. No, you could do a walking meditation where you just go outside and you walk and you observe. You don't have a phone on you and you're just very present in the moment. You could do a japa meditation. So one of the keys, I just want to go back to meditation, is having a point of focus. So then with a japa meditation, what you would do is you would have a chant or mantra that you repeat over and over again, and that becomes your point of focus. In that way, your mind, even though it's wandered, it can come back to the mantra. Typically, we would use a mala. I have a mala over there. So a mala is you know those beaded necklaces that everyone's wearing as a fashion?
Yes.
It actually has a function.
Really? So it doesn't just look good?
No, we can use it. Let me grab it.
Okay.
So this is a mala, and it has 108 beads on it.
Is there a specific reason why there's 108?
So there are there's a bunch of connections to the number 108, but one of the things, particularly when we think about meditation, is there are 108 psychic centers on our body. So when you're doing the mantra, don't get spooked out. When you're doing the mantra, you're just activating those spaces so you can connect. So you typically would start, and then after you say one mantra, then you move to the next. So one of the mantras I like is Om Ganapataye Namaha, Om Ganapataye Namaha. And so every time I end, then I would move on to the next one, and then I just keep going. So you could use a mala for that. Sometimes they divide it in half, and then you just have to go around twice or 3 times, whatever number they cut it down to. Sometimes people make bracelets instead, but it's usually a division of that 108, so that you can keep that going, all right? Or you can use your digits. So we have Natramalas on our hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3. We have 12 sections here. So you would go around and then come back around. So then 12 times 9 gives you
108.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So every time you go around, you would just keep count. Okay, that was a 12, that was a 12, that was a 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Then I go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12. Then I go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12 till I get to this part.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so you don't need to go out and buy something. Yeah, and then this will also help you stay focused. This becomes like a point of focus too, as you're saying your mantra. And the mantra doesn't have to be something like I said in Sanskrit. I've led chakra meditations, and I've created a phrase. Like one of the ones that I'm popular for now is I host this yoga event, and our mantra, our chant I should say, is I am divine, I am moving art. And we keep saying that 108 times. And it's really powerful because we literally have about 200 to 300 people being led in that way. Yeah. Another form of meditation is yoga nidra, and that is yummy because you're laying down and you're just told to focus on different parts of your body and just let it relax. And typically some people end up sleeping at the end, and that's okay, no judgment. You know? The key is just getting that body in a relaxed state. A lot of times people who have sleeping issues, insomnia, and things like that have difficulty falling asleep. They'll run a yoga nidra meditation, which is guided. It can be as short as 20 minutes or even less, and up to like an hour, where they like really have you like focus on relax your pinky, relax your finger, and just like really focusing on the breath and things like that. So it doesn't have to look like I have to stay in an upright position, breathing and eyes closed. And even if you are doing that, it's okay if you think. I think sometimes you get caught up in like, I'm not supposed to be thinking, but you let the thought come and then not judge it, don't question it, honor it in that moment, and then let it go. And eventually you'll find the stillness that you're trying to see.
Are there any contraindications to the yoga practice?
Oh yeah, different poses have lots of contraindications. So as a yoga instructor, we're taught like this pose should be avoided if this person's dealing with certain things. Even the breathing can be a contraindication. So if you are someone who is hypertensive, you might not want to do the ujjayi breathing that we suggest, because that breathing or someone who has would be someone who has anxiety. The ujjayi breath might actually cause their anxiety to be increased, because it is it activates the nervous system. Yeah. So wanting to make sure that your teacher is aware of what's going on. So whenever I have students come in, I ask them if they have any pre-existing injuries or conditions I should be aware of, so that I can provide them with necessary modifications. Yeah. So like even things like inversions, it's said that women should avoid during their menstrual cycle.
Gotcha.
Because over time it could lead to endometriosis.
Just learned something new.
Yeah. So it's like every pose has its thing. Pregnant women have poses they should avoid.
Pregnant people can do yoga too?
Yes, we have prenatal yoga. Okay, so we have pregnant women can have yoga. Typically prenatal yoga is for women who've never practiced yoga prior to becoming pregnant. And so they're introducing them to the practice. But if you've had a practice prior to conception, then typically you can keep your regular practice and you just have to adjust and modify.
Really?
Yeah. So that's something a lot of people don't know about prenatal. Typically prenatal yoga is for women who've never practiced yoga and now they're interested in practicing because they're pregnant. But I've seen women practice Bikram, which is a hot room, up until like their last days.
Really?
Yeah, but their body had already been acclimated to it. So it's not something you want to introduce, like you don't conceive and then it's like, oh man, I think I'm going to start hot yoga now. It doesn't necessarily work like that, you know? But what's important when you go into a classroom is being very honest. Sometimes I know it's hard for us to speak on what's going on with us, but the more information you give your teacher, the better they're able to serve you in the yoga class. And remembering also that it's your practice and you're the driver. So oftentimes when we come into the practice, particularly I see it with athletes, they come in like, I'm an athlete, I have to push through, make it happen, and that's how we get injured. So if your body is saying, you know, you should pull back, might not necessarily want to completely come out of the pose, but maybe do a modified, a different variation of it.
So I guess that kind of goes with the being mindful.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and even as someone who practices on a daily basis, what I learned through my daily practice, a couple of years ago, I practiced every day for like 6 months, and it was hot yoga, is I had to honor myself in my present body. Not who I was on the mat yesterday, not who I want to be on the mat tomorrow, but do I feel like a 90-year-old today? Because there were days I was just like, oh my gosh, like yesterday when I was at my practice, my hamstrings were super tight. Whereas the day before, the hamstrings were open. I was like, whoop, 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 doing everything. And then yesterday, it's just like, keep those knees bent. Because the last thing I want is to tear my hamstring.
Right.
Which I've done.
Well, yeah, well, you definitely want to stay away from that.
Yeah.
So now here's my next question. Now you're doing the yoga. Are there any other practices that you practice, whether it be weight training or anything like that, to kind of supplement certain things?
I run. I go to the gym. I'm a HIIT person, high intensive interval training. At one point, I was doing kickboxing, Bikram running too, but then that's how I got the hammy IT band syndrome situation. So again, like with the Western mindset, we're like, go hard, go strong. And what I'm learning, the more I deepen my practice and understand it from like a holistic lifestyle, is that you shouldn't go to your max. That you should go, I think my Ayurvedic teacher was saying, you should go to like a certain percentage, but nowhere near your max. I need to look back at my notes of what she said. I almost want to say she said 50%, and in my mind, I'm like, 50%?
That seems like almost nothing, right?
Yeah, but if you're practicing every day,
right.
That's how you're going to sustain a daily practice.
Right.
But if you're going for gold every day, your body isn't designed for that. So then that's where that mindfulness comes in. On the days that I used to practice doubles, that's where I would practice 2 or 3 hot yoga classes. And one day, my first class, I would not go as hard. I would use it as like, okay, I'm just gonna chill, not gonna really go deep into this pose.
Almost like a warm-up.
It was a warm-up, and then the second class, that's when I would explore going deeper. But in the beginning, when I first tried to do it, I tried to go hard with both, and I was no good to anyone or myself when I did that. Yeah.
So, versatility. Okay. So it seems like you engage in other things and
it's a complement to other modalities. Particularly with people who practice sports, I really encourage them to do that because they end up building up all this lactic acid in their bodies, their muscles get really tense, and it'll help them to get a better and deeper stretch. As well as work muscle groups that they're not normally using. So typically someone will look at me, and I have clients who are like super buff, and then they're coming into the yoga class and they're like, you whooped my behind. You know?
I see that very frequently, and I hear that very frequently,
Yeah.
especially with the athletes who are, you know, would consider themselves to be superior to your typical individual. They go do yoga or Pilates, something like that, and they come out crying. They fear the instructor.
Yeah, because you're working different muscle groups.
Yes.
You know?
Well, I would like to thank you so much for just dropping so much knowledge. It's almost like too much. I've got to get it in chunks. You gave me too much, way too much stuff, but enlighten me a little bit more about the ideology of yoga and the practice, and I really want to give it a shot, give it a try, see how it can kind of.
Yeah, let's do a session. Let's do a class. Let's record a class.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm all about it.
Yeah, we could do sun salutations. That way that would be a good compliment to me suggesting that, and then we could see how you feel with the sun salutation.
Ooh, okay. All right, we're about to get it, baby. We're about to get it. Okay, I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you for
it.
having me.
Yes. So again, everyone, Nzingah, just extraordinary person in general, but yoga instructor and also a writer of the Yes, Baby, I Like It Raw book. It's a cookbook recipe, very good stuff, very good stuff. And so check that out if you have the opportunity. But stay tuned. We're gonna have some other stuff, and she's gonna show me the sun salutations.
Yeah.
And you're going to be gentle with me.
Yes, I'm going to use you to show how to build up.
Okay.
Because typically when you come in, if you're not used to it, it's going to float a lot. So I'll give you different variations to some of the poses that you're going to float through.
Okay.
And that way people can flow with you too.
Flow with me, people. Flow with me. All right. You guys have a great one. I had a great time discussing yoga and the practice and just the whole understanding behind it. I'm excited. I'm open to it. So you guys stay tuned again and have a great rest of your day.